Welcome to Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. Happy Monday! I hope you all had a blessed and restful Easter. Got to spend time with those you love, and, got some relaxation in. Dave took a very long weekend, so he had 2 days off, and we spent it at home, and we had some neighborhood drama on Friday morning. I'm very glad he was home for that. And I thank you for all your prayers. Friday was very stressful. I don't want to go into details as to why, but yeah. So I hope you all had a good and restful Easter. So we're going to talk about what I read this week. I will tell you up front, I did not read a single Dave book this week. Not one. I read a couple of chapters in Leviathan Wakes, but my brain needed to do its own thing this week and not be pushed into the Davy reading challenge. So I let it do its own thing. So there's one DNF for the week. There are 3 finishes, 2 of which are audio. So let's talk about it. First up, the DNF. That would be Holmes, Marple, and Poe by, Brian Sitz undoubtedly wrote it, but James Patterson put his name on the book so it would sell. It's written in the James Patterson style. I DNF'd this book less than 50 pages in. It is bad. It is bad. So the premise is, obviously, we have 3 private eyes, one based on Sherlock, one based on Miss Marple, and the other one, weirdly enough, based on Edgar Allan Poe, who I never consider as a PI type of author. Set in New York City. They're all rich and wealthy, and they're all teamed up. It's just bad. If you can get it from your library and you think you might be able to stomach, get it from the library. Don't buy it. Don't buy it because you will regret it. It is not enjoyable. It's just not. Okay, moving on. Audiobooks. So, this is a Postscript Murder by Mary Winter. Trust the picture, not the words coming out of my mouth. This is a historical cozy, and it's the first in a series. It's the first by the author for me. I'm on the fence about continuing. It is set in, I want to say, Victorian England. And our protagonist is the young widow of an earl, and so she is a countess, and she inherited his fortune. She has become the quote-unquote mother to his niece, who is also an orphan, and she's from a middle-class family, and she's living in London, and she's bored, so she starts writing an advice column for her friend who runs the magazine. And they were childhood friends, and so she, signed her advice column letters, Miss Agony. So that's the premise. And she gets a letter that says that she's a maid and her mistress's death was suspicious, and could Miss Agony please meet her in the park at 10 o'clock at night so she can tell her what she knows because she thinks she's being followed. It takes off from there. This was very middle of the road for me. I didn't particularly like our heroine. I didn't particularly find the possible future romance interesting. And I thought that the villain was pretty obvious from the get-go, at least for me. It wasn't bad. I listened to it in one day, but it wasn't anything I'd rush out and say, everybody should go listen to this. It wasn't that level of compelling listen for me. So, not bad, not great, not just, middle of the road. Okay, so the second book I listened to this week is right here. And as I say that, the name just flew out of my head. What is it called? Don't know why I couldn't remember this. It was The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. This was recommended to me by one of you very sweet, wonderful people. And this is a historical mystery. It is set in post-Revolutionary War Maine. Our heroine is a midwife. And it is based on the diary of the actual midwife who was a party to the events in the novel. The novel is a fictionalization of events. The author does explain that in the end. And I enjoyed it. I wasn't really sure after the first hour, maybe hour and a half. I was pretty much on the fence. As time went on, I became invested, so I finished it. I enjoyed it. It was a good dramatization of the midwife's journal, which I haven't read, and so from the beginning I could hear the 21st century overlay onto the events. There is a very definite feminist undertone. It isn't blatant. It isn't, I'm going to pull my hair out if this continues kind of thing, but it is there. It is appropriately atmospheric. It is a very good, if you want a winter book, it's a very good winter book. It all takes place in winter in Maine. So if you want to do, if you're in the dead of summer and you really need to cool off, this would be a great book to pick up and, get some, it's bitterly cold outside reading in. I enjoyed it, but I can't. So this is one of those ones where if I talk about it too much, I spoil it. And if you're even remotely interested, I don't want to spoil it. So I'm not going to talk about it in detail. I will tell you that the feminist undertone that's there, it doesn't spoil the story, but it is kind of immersive breaking, because you know that they wouldn't have done it that way. And there are some scenes that are very appropriate but graphic. And yeah. So it's worth a listen. It's worth a read. Is it going to be one of my top books of the year? No, it is not. Am I sad I read it? No, I'm not. Honestly, it was worth the listen, and I'm glad I read it. So I appreciate the recommendation, and I'm very glad I got it from the library. So the fourth and final book from the library in this week's update and I'm probably the last person to read this, is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is the first book in the Green Bone trilogy, and this has been making the rounds of fantasy booktube forever. It was published in 2017, so I'm very late to the party. This is, in essence, Godfather meets Asian mythology meets fantasy. There is one mildly spicy scene. It is not long. It is skippable. It does not impact the story at all. And I swear it was there because the editor thought the book needed some smut. It doesn't really reoccur anywhere else in the book, and it added nothing. However, take that scene out, and this book was a fabulous read. It is just under 500 pages. Read it in 2 days, and I will be reading the other 2. All 3 books are currently on Kindle Unlimited if you're interested. Or you can get them from your library. I'm sure your library has them because they're wildly popular. This is... If you enjoyed the Godfather movies, if you enjoy Asian mythology, if you like unique fantasy settings, this is it. This is all humans. And the magic isn't... It's very secondary in comparison to everything else that's going on in the story. And this is really a family saga. And it's a power struggle, and it's politics, and it's, who deserves to run the city and why. And it was fabulous, and it was compelling. And it was... I understand the hype now. I rarely get why books get on a hype train and stay in the hype train. And this is one. I understand why there is a hype train for it and why it continues to be talked about, 7 years after it was published. And I'm not sorry I read it in, lieu of something else this last week. It was fascinating and enjoyable and unique among fantasy. So, yeah, it was an absolutely wonderful read. That is everything I read last week. So what am I reading? While I was at the library, I did pick up a book that did not make it onto my April pile of possibilities. And that would be The Quiet Little Woman by Louisa May Alcott. This is a short story by Louisa. This would be for Alcott April, which Anne over at In Search of Wonder is co-hosting. I will link Anne's video down below. It's just a little over 100 pages, and it's not tiny print by any means, so I can knock this out and say I participated in Alcott April, and I haven't read this one, and yeah, I am looking forward to it. So I will read you the inside of this one. In the 1870s, Louisa May Alcott made friends with 5 earnest fans of her best-selling Little Women. The young Lucan girls had written to Miss Alcott telling her that they were so inspired by the examples of Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy that they too were launching their own literary publication. Soon the Lucan girls received a very special Christmas gift. A Christmas story from Miss Alcott about a lonely orphan girl who finds a family to love her. Following its publication, the story stayed in an old magazine until many years later, a reader chanced upon it. Now it is available once again to Alcott fans. Yeah. If I can read anything else by Alcott in April, I will endeavor to make an effort. So that should be an easy read this week. I am going to pick Leviathan Wakes back up and undoubtedly get started on A Beautiful Disguise and A Tale from Earthsea. Don't ask me when I'm going to do all that reading because it's going to be a very busy week around here. It's going to be a very busy week. So I hope you all have a great reading week. Please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.